My husband died on a Tuesday. A car accident on I-85, sudden and devastating. One moment he was driving home from work, the next he was gone. I was 32 years old, and suddenly a widow with a 2-year-old daughter who kept asking when Daddy was coming home. The funeral was on Saturday. 200 people packed into the chapel, family, friends, colleagues, everyone who'd loved Michael. I sat in the front row holding our daughter Emma, numb with grief, trying to hold myself together for her sake. The service was beautiful. Michael's best friend gave a eulogy that made everyone laugh and cry. My father spoke about the son-in-law he'd loved like his own son. I couldn't speak. My throat was too tight with unshed tears, but I'd written something the pastor read on my behalf. Then, as the pastor was about to close the service, Michael's mother, Patricia, stood up. She walked to the front of the chapel, took the microphone from the surprised pastor, and turned to face the congregation. Her eyes found mine across the room, and she smiled. Not a sad smile, not a grieving smile. A satisfied, triumphant smile. "Before we end," Patricia said, her voice carrying through the speakers, "there's something everyone needs to know. Something my son told me before he died. He wanted a divorce." The chapel went silent. 200 people stopped breathing. Patricia looked directly at me, her smile widening. "He was planning to leave her. He told me just last week. So when you're all feeling sorry for the poor widow, remember, she gets nothing. My son didn't want her anymore." Then the lawyer stood up, Michael's estate attorney, who'd been sitting quietly in the back. He walked to the front, took the microphone from Patricia, and said words that made her face go white. "Mrs. Brennan, that's interesting. Because I have Michael's will right here, updated 2 weeks ago, and it says something very different." Patricia collapsed in front of 200 witnesses as the lawyer revealed exactly what my husband had planned for his mother, and it was devastating. Let me back up. Because you need to understand, Patricia Brennan. You need to know about the 3 years of manipulation, the stolen money, the lies. And you need to understand why Michael spent the last weeks of his life making sure that if anything happened to him, his mother would never hurt me or Emma again. This isn't just a story about a woman who lied at her son's funeral. It's a story about a woman who tried to steal her son's life insurance, his estate, and his daughter. And about how my husband, even after death, protected us from her. My name is Claire Brennan, and I met Michael when I was 26 and he was 28. We were both working in Atlanta. I was a graphic designer at a marketing firm. He was a software engineer at a tech startup. We met at a mutual friend's barbecue, and I fell for him immediately. Michael was kind. That's the first thing anyone who knew him would say. Kind, thoughtful, funny, gentle. He had warm hazel eyes that crinkled when he smiled, dark brown hair that never quite stayed neat. And this way of making you feel like you were the most interesting person in the room. "Tell me about your work," he said at that first barbecue, genuinely interested in hearing about graphic design projects. "It's mostly corporate branding," I said. "Not particularly exciting." "Everything's exciting if you care about it," Michael said. "And you clearly care. Your face lights up when you talk about color theory." We dated for a year before getting engaged. Michael proposed at the botanical gardens where we'd had our first date, with a ring he'd designed himself. Simple, elegant, perfect. We were married 6 months later in a small ceremony with family and close friends. I met Patricia Brennan, Michael's mother, 2 months into dating Michael. She lived in a large house in Buckhead, one of Atlanta's wealthiest neighborhoods, filled with expensive furniture and family photos, where Michael was always the center. "So you're the girl my son's been seeing," Patricia said when Michael brought me to Sunday dinner. She was 58, impeccably dressed in designer clothes, her blonde hair perfectly styled, her makeup flawless. "Claire, is it? What an ordinary name." "Mom," Michael said, a warning in his voice. "I'm just saying, it's very common. Not like the names in our family. Patricia, Victoria, Catherine. Names with history." She smiled at me, but it didn't reach her eyes. "But I suppose common names are fine for common people." Michael's father had died when Michael was 15. Patricia had raised him alone, worked hard to give him opportunities, and never let him forget it. Every conversation somehow circled back to the sacrifices she'd made, the life she'd given up, the devotion she'd shown. "I could have remarried," Patricia would say. So many men were interested, but I devoted myself to Michael. He was my whole world, and she expected that devotion returned. She called Michael multiple times a day, showed up at his apartment unannounced, had opinions about his job, his friends, his choices. Michael handled it with patience born of a lifetime of managing his mother's needs. She's lonely, he'd explain. I'm all she has. I can't just abandon her. I'm not asking you to abandon her, I'd say. Just set some boundaries. You don't understand what it's like to lose a parent young, Michael said. She raised me alone. I owe her. Patricia didn't like me. She made that clear from the beginning, though always with plausible deniability. Comments about my simple style, my modest job, my small family. She'd compare me unfavorably to Michael's ex-girlfriend, a lawyer from a wealthy family Patricia had loved. Stephanie was so elegant, Patricia would say, showing me photos uninvited. They made such a striking couple. I was devastated when they broke up. Why did they break up? I asked Michael after one particularly pointed comparison. Because my mother suffocated the relationship, Michael said bluntly. Stephanie said she felt like she was dating both of us. That Mom was always there, always interfering, always demanding attention. And you didn't. Change anything? I tried, Michael said. But Mom had a health scare right after the breakup. Panic attacks, chest pains. The doctors said it was stress. I felt guilty, like I'd caused it by pushing her away. I should have seen the pattern then. But I was in love, and Michael was worth dealing with his mother's coldness. We got married despite Patricia's subtle objections. She wore white to the wedding. Oh, is that a problem? It's ivory, not white. Completely different. She gave a speech at the reception about how Michael had always been her boy and how she hoped marriage wouldn't change him. She cried through the ceremony, but not happy tears, performative grief about losing her son. Give her time, Michael said on our honeymoon. She'll come around. But Patricia didn't come around. She called during our honeymoon, 3 times a day. She accidentally dropped by our new apartment constantly. She had emergencies that required Michael's immediate attention. A strange noise in her house, a problem with her car, feeling dizzy and needing someone to drive her to the doctor. Your mother is manipulating you, I said, after the 4th emergency in 2 weeks. She's lonely and scared, Michael defended. I can't just ignore her. I'm not asking you to ignore her. I'm asking you to recognize when she's creating crises for attention. We fought about his mother regularly. Never big explosive fights. Michael hated conflict, but constant low-level tension about boundaries and time and priorities. Then I got pregnant. We were thrilled. Surprised. We hadn't been trying, but thrilled. Michael cried when I showed him the positive test. We're having a baby. We're going to be parents. Patricia's reaction was complicated. A baby. Oh my. Well, I suppose that's exciting. You're quite young, though. Are you sure you're ready? Babies are exhausting. They ruin your body, Claire. And your career. Are you prepared for that? We're prepared, Michael said firmly. If you say so, darling. I just worry. You've only been married a year. You barely know each other. And babies put such strain on marriages. Look at what happened to your father and me. Oh, wait. He died before you could see how hard it was. Michael tensed beside me. Patricia knew exactly how to wound him. References to his father always did it. Over the pregnancy, Patricia's behavior escalated. She had opinions about everything. My prenatal care. That's not the best OB in Atlanta, is it? On my diet. Should you really be eating that? On my maternity clothes. You're letting yourself go quite early. Our choice of names. Emma? She said when we told her. That's so plain. What about Victoria? Or Catherine? Family names? Names with dignity. We like Emma, I said. It's common, Patricia sniffed. Like Claire. I suppose you come from common stock and don't know better, Michael finally snapped. Mom, that's enough. Emma is our daughter, and we'll name her what we want. Stop criticizing my wife. Patricia's eyes filled with tears. I'm just trying to help. I'm sorry if my opinions aren't wanted. I'll just stay out of it. Clearly you don't need your mother anymore. She left and didn't call for 3 days. Michael was anxious, guilty, worried he'd hurt her. Finally, he called to apologize, and Patricia graciously forgave him. But the message was clear. Criticism of Patricia led to withdrawal of affection. Emma was born on a beautiful spring morning. 8 pounds, healthy, perfect. Michael held her and cried, telling her how much he loved her, how he'd always protect her, how she was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. Patricia arrived at the hospital within an hour. She pushed past me, still recovering from delivery, and tried to take Emma from Michael's arms. Let Grandma hold her precious boy. Oh, it's a girl. Well, let Grandma hold her anyway. Her name is Emma, Michael said, not handing over the baby. And Claire just gave birth. Maybe give us some family time before— I am family, Patricia said, hurt dripping from every word. I'm your mother. I raised you. And you're keeping me from my grandchild? Michael, exhausted from the labor vigil and emotional from becoming a father, gave in. He handed Emma to Patricia, who held her awkwardly, not like someone comfortable with babies, but like someone performing the role of doting grandmother. She has the Brennan nose, Patricia announced. Not much to look at now, but babies rarely are. She'll grow into her features, hopefully. She's beautiful, I said firmly. If you say so, dear. Over Emma's first 2 years, Patricia's interference intensified. She had opinions about feeding, breast versus formula, sleeping arrangements, daycare, discipline, everything. She'd show up unannounced to help, which meant criticizing how I did things and telling Michael I was doing it wrong. Claire's letting Emma cry too much. Babies need to be held constantly. Claire's holding Emma too much. She's going to spoil her. Claire's feeding her too much solid food too early. Claire's not feeding her enough variety. Whatever I did was wrong. And Patricia would tell Michael privately that she was concerned about my parenting, that maybe Emma would be better off with more involved grandparent care, that Patricia could take Emma sometimes, give me a break, since parenting seems so overwhelming for you. Michael started to see it. Slowly, finally, he began to recognize the patterns, the manipulation, the constant criticism, the way his mother undermined me at every turn. My mom needs to back off, he said when Emma was 18 months old. This is constant. You're a great mother, and she's making you doubt yourself. Can you tell her that? I'll try. He did try. He set boundaries. No more unannounced visits. No more calling multiple times daily. No more undermining me to Emma or making decisions about our daughter without consulting us. Patricia reacted like he'd stabbed her. Tears, guilt trips, health scares. You're killing me, Michael. The stress is literally killing me. My blood pressure is through the roof. The doctor says I'm at risk for a heart attack. But fine, if you don't care if your mother lives or dies, Mom, I'm not saying you can't see us. I'm just saying you need to call first and respect Claire's parenting decisions. Respect her? She's stolen my son and now she's keeping my granddaughter from me. I gave up everything for you, Michael. Everything. And this is how you repay me? It was exhausting. But Michael held firm. For the first time in his life, he maintained boundaries with his mother. Patricia pulled back, hurt and angry, but respected the rules because she had no choice. Then 3 months later, something happened that should have been a red flag, but we didn't see it coming. Patricia's name appeared on our credit report. She'd opened a credit card in Michael's name without his permission. When Michael confronted her, she was defensive. I needed it. My car needed repairs and I didn't have the money. You're my son. You should want to help me. By committing fraud. Michael was angrier than I'd ever seen him. You opened a credit card in my name without asking? I was going to tell you, and I'll pay it back. That's identity theft, Mom. Don't be dramatic. It's a small amount, barely $3,000. $3,000, Mom, I have a wife and daughter to support. You can't just take money from us. From us? Or from her? Patricia looked at me with pure hatred. This wouldn't be an issue if you weren't spending all your money on her and that child. You used to help me, before she turned you against me. Michael closed the credit card and paid off the balance to protect his credit. He told Patricia she wasn't allowed access to any of our financial information anymore. Patricia cried and played victim, but Michael stayed firm. I think my mom might have a real problem, he told me that night. This isn't just boundary issues. This is financial abuse, identity theft. I need to protect us. What are you going to do? I'm going to update our will. Make sure if anything happens to me, you and Emma are protected. Mom doesn't get control of anything. 2 weeks later, Michael met with his estate attorney. He updated everything, Will, life insurance beneficiaries, power of attorney. He made me the sole executor. He set up trusts for Emma, and he included specific language excluding his mother from any inheritance or control. I feel morbid doing this, Michael said, like I'm preparing to die. You're preparing to protect your family, I said. That's what good fathers do. 1 week after updating his will, Michael died in a car accident. A semi-truck ran a red light. Michael didn't have time to react. The impact killed him instantly. The police said he didn't suffer. I became a widow at 32, with a 2-year-old daughter and a mother-in-law who'd been told 1 week earlier that she was being excluded from her son's estate. And Patricia, who'd gotten a call from Michael's attorney confirming he'd updated his will, knew exactly what that meant. The police came to my door at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. 2 officers, their faces grim, asking if I was Claire Brennan. Is Michael here? One asked. No, he's on his way home from work. Why? What's happened? Their faces told me everything before they said the words. Mrs. Brennan, there's been an accident. Your husband's vehicle was struck by a semi-truck on I-85. I'm very sorry. He didn't survive. The world stopped. Literally stopped. Sound disappeared. Color drained. I stood in my doorway, wearing pajamas, barefoot, and felt reality fracture around me. No, I said. Simple. Certain. No, there's a mistake. Michael's careful. He's a good driver. Ma'am, there was no mistake. His license plate, his ID. I'm very sorry for your loss. Emma was asleep upstairs. My 2-year-old daughter who didn't know her father was dead. Who would wake up tomorrow asking for Daddy, and I'd have to find words to explain the unexplainable. My parents came immediately. My mother held me while I sobbed. My father made phone calls, to Michael's work, to our friends, to the funeral home. Someone had to handle logistics while I fell apart. I should have called Patricia. She was Michael's mother. She had a right to know. But I couldn't. I couldn't call her. I was drowning in grief, and I knew that Patricia would make this about her. Would find a way to blame me or compete for sympathy or turn Michael's death into Patricia's tragedy. My father called her. At 2 a.m., he called Patricia Brennan and told her that her son was dead. She showed up at my house an hour later, not to comfort me, not to cry with me, but to take control. Where are the insurance documents? Patricia demanded, pushing past my father into my living room where I sat on the couch, wrapped in blankets, shaking. Life insurance, car insurance, the homeowner's policy. I need to see all of it. Patricia, this isn't the time, my father started. It absolutely is the time, Patricia snapped. There are things that need to be handled immediately. Death benefits, claims, accounts. Claire's clearly in no state to handle these things. I'll take over. I'm the executor of Michael's estate, I said quietly, my voice hoarse from crying. Michael made me executor. Patricia's face went cold. Executor? Since when? 2 weeks ago. He updated everything. Why would he do that? Patricia's voice rose. I'm his mother. I should be executor. Patricia. My mother intervened, her voice firm. Your son just died. Claire just lost her husband. This is not the time for estate discussions. Please respect the family's grief. Patricia looked at my mother like she'd suggested something obscene. Respect? I'm his mother. I have more right to grieve than anyone. I carried him for 9 months. I raised him alone. I sacrificed everything. And you're telling me to respect? Leave, my father said quietly. Now, we'll contact you about funeral arrangements. But right now, leave. Patricia left, but not before saying, loud enough for everyone to hear, this isn't over. Michael wouldn't have changed those documents unless she manipulated him. Everyone will know the truth. The next 3 days were a blur. Planning a funeral while in shock. Writing an obituary for a man who should have had 50 more years. Telling Emma over and over that Daddy was in heaven, watching her, loving her, never coming home. Emma didn't understand. She was 2. She kept asking when Daddy would come back from heaven, when he'd read her stories again, when he'd come to her tea parties. Each question broke me more. Patricia called constantly, demanding to be involved in every funeral decision, insisting she should write the obituary. I knew him longest. Choose the casket. I know what he would have wanted. Select the music. He always loved the songs I played when he was little. The funeral is on Saturday, I told her through my attorney. You're welcome to attend, but I'm making the arrangements. This is my son's funeral, Patricia screamed into the phone. You've been married 3 years. I raised him for 28 years before you showed up. You don't get to decide. Michael made me executor, I said, exhausted. Which means I make these decisions. You can attend or not. That's your choice. The day before the funeral, Patricia's attorney called mine. Mrs. Patricia Brennan is contesting the will, he said. She believes her son was unduly influenced to change his estate documents. She's filing papers to freeze the estate pending investigation. Investigation of what? My attorney demanded. Mrs. Brennan believes Claire manipulated Michael into excluding his mother from his estate. Given the timing, documents changed 2 weeks before his death. She has grounds for suspicion. Those documents were changed because Patricia committed identity theft, my attorney countered. She opened credit cards in Michael's name. He was protecting his family from financial abuse. That's an allegation without proof. We have proof. Police reports, credit card statements, everything. Patricia Brennan is trying to steal from her son's widow and orphaned child. The funeral was Saturday. I woke up that morning feeling like I was moving through water. Everything was slow, muted, unreal. I put on a black dress. My mother helped with Emma, dressing her in the little black dress we'd bought. Who buys a toddler morning clothes? Widows do. The chapel was packed. Michael's co-workers, college friends, neighbors, family, 200 people who'd loved my husband, who'd come to say goodbye. I sat in the front row with Emma on my lap, my parents on either side, and tried to breathe through the service. The pastor spoke beautifully about Michael's kindness, his faith, his love for family. Michael's best friend Jake gave a eulogy that made everyone laugh. Stories about college pranks and road trips and the time Michael accidentally set the dorm kitchen on fire making popcorn. My father spoke about the son-in-law he'd loved, the father Michael had been to Emma, the husband who'd made his daughter happy. I'd written something, but couldn't read it. My throat closed every time I tried. The pastor read it for me, about meeting Michael at a barbecue, falling in love with his kindness, building a life together, the daughter who had his eyes and his gentle soul. There wasn't a dry eye in the chapel. Even Patricia was crying, though I noticed she was watching people's reactions, performing grief rather than experiencing it. The pastor was about to close the service, about to give the final blessing before we went to the cemetery. That's when Patricia stood up. She walked to the front of the chapel. The pastor, surprised, stepped aside. Patricia took the microphone from the stand and turned to face 200 people. Before we end, Patricia said, her voice amplified through the speakers, there's something everyone needs to know. My blood went cold. My mother's hand gripped mine. My son, Patricia continued, was planning to leave his wife. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Emma, sensing tension, started to whimper. I held her closer. Michael told me, Patricia said, looking directly at me, just last week. He said he wanted a divorce, that he'd made a mistake, that he'd realized he married too young, married the wrong person. My father stood up. Patricia, this is not— Let me finish, Patricia commanded. People deserve to know the truth. They're sitting here feeling sorry for the grieving widow. She said it with dripping sarcasm. But Michael was leaving her. He told me he'd already talked to lawyers. He was filing papers. The chapel was silent except for Emma's quiet crying. Everyone was staring at me. Some faces showed sympathy. Others showed confusion. Was it true? Had Michael wanted to leave me? So when you're all planning to help poor Claire, Patricia said, her smile vicious, remember that my son didn't want her anymore. Remember that he was leaving. And remember, she looked directly at me, that she gets nothing. Michael wanted her gone. Then Patricia did something that made my stomach drop. She pulled papers from her purse. I have my son's real will right here, she said, waving documents. The one he made before she manipulated him into changing it. The one that leaves everything to his mother, like it should be. That baby, she pointed at Emma, is the only thing that was really his. And I'll be fighting for custody, because Claire clearly isn't fit to raise a Brennan. The chapel erupted. People shouting, my father moving toward Patricia, the pastor trying to regain control, and I sat there, numb, watching my mother-in-law destroy my husband's memory and threaten to take my daughter, all at his funeral. That's when a voice cut through the chaos. Mrs. Brennan. Everyone turned. A man in his 60s, wearing a dark suit, standing in the back of the chapel. Thomas Morrison, Michael's estate attorney. He walked down the aisle with purpose. Patricia's face went from triumphant to uncertain. "Mr. Morrison," she said, "I'm glad you're here. You can confirm." "I can confirm," Morrison said, taking the microphone from her, "that I met with Michael 2 weeks ago to update his will. At his request. While he was of sound mind and with no undue influence," Patricia's smile faltered. "But he told me—" "Michael told you nothing about divorce," Morrison said firmly. "In fact, during our meeting, he specifically stated that he wanted to ensure his wife and daughter were protected. From you." The words hung in the air. "Protected. From you. That's not— He wouldn't—" Patricia stumbled over words. Morrison pulled his own document from his briefcase. "This is Michael Brennan's last will and testament, properly executed and witnessed. Would you like me to read the relevant portions now, or wait until the scheduled reading next week?" "Now," my father said firmly. "Read it now, so everyone hears the truth." Morrison looked at me. I nodded. If Patricia was going to make Michael's funeral about money and lies, then let everyone hear what Michael actually wanted. "Very well," Morrison said. He opened the document and began to read. "I, Michael James Brennan, being of sound mind and body." The legal preamble, standard language. "Then, to my beloved wife Claire, I leave my entire estate, including life insurance proceeds, investment accounts, our home, and all personal property. She is named sole executor and has complete authority over estate decisions." Patricia made a choking sound. Morrison continued. "To my daughter Emma Rose Brennan, I establish a trust funded by 25% of my estate, managed by my wife until Emma reaches age 25. This trust is to be used for Emma's education, health, and welfare." "What about me?" Patricia's voice was shrill. "I'm his mother. What did he leave me?" Morrison looked at her over his glasses. "Let me read that section. To my mother, Patricia Ann Brennan, I leave nothing. Patricia has demonstrated repeatedly that she cannot be trusted with financial access to my family. She has committed identity theft, opened fraudulent credit accounts, and attempted to manipulate me into excluding my wife from my life. I love my mother, but I cannot enable her destructive behavior. She is explicitly excluded from any inheritance, from any control over estate decisions, and from guardianship of my daughter in the event of my death." The silence was deafening. 200 people heard Michael's words from beyond the grave. Heard him explicitly exclude his mother. Heard him name her crimes. Patricia's face went white, then red, then white again. "Furthermore," Morrison continued, "if my mother contests this will or harasses my wife in any way following my death, she will be required to repay the $12,000 in fraudulent credit card debt she accumulated in my name over the past 2 years. I have documentation of this debt and have chosen not to pursue legal action, only to spare her the embarrassment. But if she attempts to hurt my family after I'm gone, that documentation will be released to authorities. $12,000. Not $3,000 like Patricia had admitted. $12,000 of theft. That's not true," Patricia shouted. "He's lying. That document is fake." "The document is properly executed with 2 witnesses and a notary," Morrison said calmly. "Both witnesses are here today if you'd like to question them. And I have copies of all the credit card statements Michael documented. Would you like me to present those as well?" Patricia looked around the chapel wildly. 200 people staring at her, all of them now knowing she'd lied about the divorce, knowing she'd committed identity theft, knowing Michael had explicitly excluded her from his will and his daughter's life. Her eyes rolled back. She swayed, and then she collapsed, crumpling to the floor in front of the entire congregation. For a moment, everyone froze. Then people rushed forward. Someone called 911, someone checked her pulse, someone grabbed water. Patricia wasn't unconscious long, maybe 30 seconds, but when her eyes opened, she saw 200 faces looking down at her. Not with sympathy, with judgment. The paramedics came, checked her vitals. Her blood pressure was elevated, shock, stress, humiliation, but she was medically fine. They wanted to take her to the hospital. She refused. "I want to go home," she said, her voice small for the first time ever. "Please, just let me go home." They let her go. 2 of Michael's cousins helped her to her car. Everyone watched in silence as Patricia Brennan, who'd come to steal the spotlight at her son's funeral, left in disgrace. After she was gone, Morrison approached me quietly. "Mrs. Brennan, I apologize for the disruption, but I felt it was important that the truth be known." "Thank you," I whispered, Emma still in my arms. "Thank you for protecting us." "Michael protected you," Morrison said. "I'm just executing his wishes." That document was one of the most carefully constructed wills I've ever written. Michael spent 2 hours making sure every word would protect you and Emma from his mother. He knew she'd try something. "He knew," I said, tears streaming down my face again. "He knew, and he protected us anyway." The funeral continued. We went to the cemetery. We buried my husband. And through it all, I felt Michael's love surrounding us, protecting us even in death. Patricia didn't attend the burial. After her public humiliation in the chapel, she went home. But she didn't give up. She couldn't. Narcissists never do. The next day, while I was still in shock and grief, Patricia's attorney filed emergency papers to contest the will. The grounds: undue influence, diminished capacity, and fraudulent documentation. "She's claiming Michael wasn't in his right mind when he changed his will," my attorney explained, "and that you manipulated him into excluding her." "He changed it because she stole from us," I said, exhausted. "We have proof, we do, and we'll present that proof. But this is going to be ugly, Claire. Patricia is going to drag Michael's name through the mud trying to get control of his estate." "Why?" I asked, genuinely not understanding. "Why would she do this? He's barely buried and she's already trying to—" "Control," my attorney said simply. "And money. Michael's life insurance alone is $300,000. His 401k, his equity in your home, his investment accounts. We're looking at over $500,000 in total assets. Patricia sees that as her money. Money you're stealing from her. It's for Emma," I said. Michael wanted to make sure Emma was provided for. "Patricia doesn't care about Emma. She cares about herself. The estate battle consumed everything. While I was trying to grieve, to comfort my daughter, to figure out how to survive as a single mother, Patricia was demanding financial records, questioning Michael's mental state, accusing me of forgery. She gave interviews to local news stations. My son died unexpectedly, and his gold-digging wife immediately produced a will cutting out his mother. It's suspicious. The police should investigate. The police did investigate. They reviewed the will, talked to Morrison, interviewed the witnesses. They concluded the will was legitimate and told Patricia to take her complaints to probate court. But Patricia had planted seeds of doubt. Some of Michael's extended family, cousins, aunts, uncles who barely knew him, started questioning whether I'd manipulated him. Social media filled with speculation. Why would Michael exclude his mother unless Claire turned him against her? Something seems off about this whole situation. That poor woman losing her son and then being cut out of his will. So tragic. I had to defend myself while grieving. Had to explain over and over that Michael excluded Patricia because she'd committed financial crimes against us. Some people believed me. Others thought I was lying to justify stealing from a grieving mother. My parents were furious. "Patricia is destroying Michael's memory," my father said. "He loved you and Emma. He wanted you protected. And she's making it sound like you're a con artist." "Let her," my mother advised. "The truth will come out in court. Focus on Emma. Focus on healing." But it was hard to heal with Patricia's constant attacks. She filed motions demanding immediate access to the life insurance funds. She claimed she needed them to pay for Michael's funeral expenses, which I'd already paid. She demanded half the estate as Michael's closest living relative. Every motion was denied. The judge reviewed the will, reviewed the documentation of Patricia's identity theft, and ruled that the will was valid and I was the rightful executor. "Mrs. Brennan," the judge said to Patricia in court, "your son made his wishes clear. He wanted his wife and daughter protected. Continuing to contest this will is harassment. But he's my son." "Was your son?" the judge corrected. "And he made legal decisions about his estate while alive and competent. Those decisions stand. This matter is closed." Patricia left the courtroom crying, playing the victim for anyone who would listen. But legally, she'd lost. The will stood. Emma and I were protected. That should have been the end. But it wasn't. Patricia started showing up at my house. Not inside. I'd changed the locks and she didn't have a key, but outside. Sitting in her car across the street. Watching. She's been there for 3 hours, my mother said, looking out the window nervously. Just sitting there, staring at the house. I called the police. They talked to Patricia, told her to leave. She did. But she came back the next day, then she started following me. To the grocery store, to Emma's daycare, to my parents' house. Always at a distance, always just watching, never approaching, never speaking, just there. She's stalking you, my attorney said. Document everything. Times, locations, photos if possible. We need evidence for a restraining order. I documented. 2 weeks of Patricia following me. Sitting outside my house. Showing up wherever I went. She never threatened me directly. Never approached. But the message was clear. I'm watching. I'm waiting. Then things escalated. I got a call from Emma's daycare. Mrs. Brennan, there was an incident today. A woman came claiming to be Emma's grandmother, saying she had permission to pick her up. My blood ran cold. Patricia. We didn't release Emma to her, the director assured me. She's not on your authorized list. But the woman became quite agitated. She said you were keeping her granddaughter from her illegally, that she had grandparent rights. She caused a scene before leaving. I'm coming to get Emma now, I said, already grabbing my keys. And I'm adding a note to her file. Patricia Brennan is never, under any circumstances, allowed to pick up my daughter. When I arrived at the daycare, the director showed me security footage. Patricia arguing with staff, demanding Emma, claiming I was an unfit mother who'd manipulated her son. Security had to escort her out. This is concerning behavior, the director said carefully. If she comes back, we'll call the police. But Mrs. Brennan, you might want to consider legal action. I filed for a restraining order that afternoon. The hearing was set for the following week. In the meantime, Patricia's attacks got more creative. She couldn't approach me directly, so she went after my reputation. She posted on social media, Facebook, Instagram, everywhere, claiming I'd poisoned Michael against his mother, stolen his estate, and was now preventing her from seeing her granddaughter. She created a narrative where she was the victim, devoted mother destroyed by manipulative daughter-in-law. Some people believed her. They always do. People who didn't know us, who only saw Patricia's performance of grief and victimhood, thought I was cruel for keeping a grandmother from her grandchild. Your husband just died and you're already fighting with his mother? That's cold. Grandparents have rights. She should be able to see that baby. Something's not right here. Why would he cut out his own mother unless the wife turned him against her? I wanted to scream, to post the evidence of Patricia's theft, her manipulation, her attempt to steal Emma from daycare. But my attorney advised against it. Don't engage, he said. Let her make herself look crazy. In court, we'll present facts. Online, she can make up whatever story she wants, but it won't matter legally. The restraining order hearing was brutal. Patricia showed up with her attorney, playing the heartbroken grandmother. She cried on the stand, talking about how much she loved Emma, how she'd only ever wanted to be part of her granddaughter's life, how I was keeping her away out of spite. I've lost my son, Patricia sobbed, dabbing at tears with a tissue. And now I'm losing my granddaughter, too. Claire has turned Emma against me, won't even let me see her, all because Michael and I had a disagreement about money before he died. A disagreement about money? My attorney repeated. Mrs. Brennan, you committed identity theft against your son. You opened credit cards in his name and accumulated $12,000 in fraudulent debt. That's not a disagreement. That's a crime. It was a misunderstanding, Patricia said quickly. Family helping family. Michael knew I'd pay him back. Did he know you were opening cards in his name? I meant to ask him. I was going to, but you didn't. You stole his identity. And when he discovered it, he updated his will to protect his family from you. Then you showed up at his funeral claiming he wanted to divorce his wife. A complete fabrication. You tried to steal the spotlight at your son's funeral with lies, Patricia's lawyer objected. Your Honor, my client's behavior at the funeral was emotional grief. She'd just lost her son. People say things they don't mean when they're grieving. She also, my attorney continued, attempted to pick up the minor child from daycare without authorization. Despite knowing she's not on the approved list, she stalked Mrs. Claire Brennan for 2 weeks. She's posted defamatory statements on social media. This isn't grief. This is harassment. The judge reviewed the evidence. The credit card statements? The daycare incident report. Photos of Patricia's car parked outside my house. Screenshots of her social media posts. Mrs. Patricia Brennan, the judge said, I'm granting a temporary restraining order. You are to stay 500 feet away from Claire Brennan, Emma Brennan, their home, Emma's daycare, and any location where they're present. You are not to contact them directly or indirectly, including through social media. This order will be in effect for 1 year, at which point we'll review. But she's my granddaughter, Patricia cried. You can't keep me from my own granddaughter. I can and I am, the judge said firmly. You've demonstrated concerning behavior. Until you can show that you're not a threat to this family's safety and well-being, you will have no contact with them. Patricia was escorted from the courtroom, still crying, still playing victim. But the restraining order was official. For about 2 months, Patricia respected it. No drive-bys, no stalking, no social media posts. I started to relax, to think maybe it was over. Then I got a call from Morrison, Michael's attorney. Claire, there's a problem. Patricia has filed a lawsuit claiming that Michael's life insurance policy was taken out with her as the primary beneficiary and that you changed it without authorization. That's insane, I said. Michael changed his own beneficiaries when he updated his will. I had nothing to do with it, I know. But she's claiming you forged his signature on the beneficiary change forms. She's demanding the insurance company freeze the payout pending investigation. Can she do that? She can try. It'll delay the life insurance disbursement. But Claire, we have Michael's signature on file. We can easily prove it's authentic. This is just another attempt to harass you and access money that isn't hers. The insurance investigation took 6 weeks. 6 weeks of forensic document analysis, handwriting experts, verification of signatures, all while I was trying to pay bills, keep the mortgage current, support Emma on my salary alone. The conclusion, Michael's signature was authentic. He'd changed his beneficiaries himself. Patricia's claim was baseless. The insurance company paid out. $300,000 in life insurance proceeds went into an account for Emma's future. Education, health, whatever she needed. I didn't touch it except to pay for grief counseling for both of us. But Patricia wasn't done. She filed for grandparent visitation rights. In Georgia, grandparents can petition for visitation if they can prove it's in the child's best interest, my attorney explained. Patricia is claiming that Emma needs a relationship with her paternal grandmother, and that you're denying her that relationship without just cause. The just cause is that Patricia is toxic and dangerous, I said. We know that. We'll prove that, but it means another court battle. The grandparent rights hearing was 3 months after Michael's death. I had to testify about Patricia's behavior, about the identity theft, the funeral lies, the stalking, the daycare incident, about Michael's explicit wishes that his mother not have custody or control over Emma. Patricia testified that she'd made mistakes, but had only ever loved her son and wanted to love her granddaughter. That she'd been in grief and not thinking clearly. That she deserved a chance to be a grandmother. Emma's guardian ad litem, a lawyer appointed to represent Emma's interests, interviewed both of us. Spent time observing Emma with me, reviewing Patricia's history, examining the restraining order. In her report, she wrote, while grandparent relationships can be beneficial to children, in this case Patricia Brennan has demonstrated a pattern of behavior that would be harmful to the minor child's emotional well-being. She has lied, stalked, harassed, and attempted to remove the child from authorized care. The child's father explicitly excluded her from guardianship. It is not in Emma's best interest to have a relationship with her paternal grandmother at this time. The judge denied Patricia's petition. No visitation rights. The restraining order remained in place. The court recognizes that you're Emma's biological grandmother, the judge told Patricia. But biology doesn't create an automatic right to access a child. Your son made his wishes clear before his death. He wanted his daughter protected from your behavior. This court will honor his wishes. Patricia left the courthouse defeated. For the first time since Michael's death, she seemed to realize she'd lost. That no amount of lawsuits or lies or manipulation would get her access to Emma or Michael's money. But she made one final attempt. 6 months after Michael's death, I got a letter from social services. Someone had filed an anonymous report claiming I was neglecting Emma. that I was leaving her alone for long periods, that I was drinking heavily, that the house was unsanitary, that Emma showed signs of abuse. The social worker who came to investigate was kind but thorough. She toured our home, clean, well-maintained, full of toys and children's books. She talked to Emma, happy, healthy, developmentally appropriate. She reviewed medical records, all checkups current, no signs of neglect or abuse. She interviewed my parents, Emma's daycare provider, our pediatrician. Mrs. Brennan, the social worker said, it's clear this report is unfounded. Emma is well cared for, loved, thriving. I'll be closing this case immediately. Who filed it? I asked, though I already knew. The report was anonymous. But between you and me, false reports from disgruntled family members aren't uncommon, especially in custody or estate disputes. It was my mother-in-law. I can't confirm that, the social worker said carefully. But if someone is filing false reports as harassment, that's a crime. You might want to discuss that with your attorney. My attorney was furious. Filing a false child abuse report is a felony in Georgia. If we can prove Patricia filed it, she filed it anonymously. Right. But the timing, the access to information about you and Emma, the pattern of harassment, we can build a circumstantial case. And even if we can't prove it criminally, we can use it to extend the restraining order and show a judge she's escalating. We filed to extend the restraining order to 5 years. At the hearing, I presented everything: the lawsuits, the insurance fraud claim, the grandparent rights petition, the false social services report. Your Honor, my attorney said, Patricia Brennan has spent the last 6 months since her son's death harassing his widow and trying to access his child and his money. Every legal avenue has failed, so she's escalated to filing false abuse reports. She's demonstrated that she will not stop, that she cannot accept that her son wanted his wife and daughter protected from her. The judge agreed. 5-year restraining order and a warning. Mrs. Brennan, if you file any more frivolous lawsuits, false reports, or engage in any further harassment of this family, I will hold you in contempt of court. Your son made his wishes clear. He wanted you to have no contact with his family, respect his wishes, or face legal consequences. Patricia sat in the courtroom, silent for once. No tears, no performance, just cold, hard defeat. After that, she stopped. Finally, completely, she stopped. No more drive-bys, no more lawsuits, no more social media posts. Patricia Brennan disappeared from our lives, leaving only the wreckage she'd created. The first year after Michael's death was survival. Just getting through each day, waking up without him, explaining to Emma over and over that Daddy was in heaven, going to bed alone in a bed that felt too big and too empty. Grief is exhausting. Not just emotionally, physically. I was tired all the time. Tired from single parenting. Tired from working full-time to keep our health insurance. Tired from constant vigilance about Patricia. Tired from just existing in a world where Michael didn't. Emma handled it the way toddlers do, with confusion and tantrums and regression. She'd been potty trained. She wasn't anymore. She'd been sleeping through the night. She wasn't anymore. She'd been independent. Now she couldn't let me out of her sight. It's normal, the child psychologist assured me. She's processing trauma. She needs extra security right now. Be patient. I was patient. What choice did I have? I held her when she cried for Daddy. I let her sleep in my bed when nightmares woke her. I read the same stories Michael used to read, trying to keep his voice alive for her, even though it broke my heart every time. Tell me about Daddy, Emma would say, and I would. I'd tell her about how Michael loved her so much, how he'd cry every time he held her, how he'd make up songs about her at bedtime, how he'd dance with her in the kitchen, how he'd wanted to be there for every milestone, first day of school, learning to ride a bike, graduation, wedding. Daddy's still with you, I'd say. He's watching from heaven. He's so proud of you, but I want him here, Emma would sob, and I had no answer for that, because I wanted him here too. The grief counselor I'd started seeing said it was important to create new routines, new memories, new traditions that didn't revolve around what we'd lost. But everything reminded me of Michael, the coffee maker. He'd programmed to start at 6 a.m. the Netflix account still showing his continue watching list, his clothes in the closet that I couldn't bring myself to, donate the wedding photos on the mantle, the life we'd built together that I now Had to continue alone. Have you considered dating? My friend Melissa asked 6 months after Michael's death. What? No, absolutely not. I'm not saying now. Just eventually. You're 33. You're young. Michael wouldn't want you to be alone forever. I don't feel young, I said. I feel ancient. I feel like I've lived 1,000 years in the past 6 months. And I can't imagine being with anyone who isn't Michael. You don't have to imagine it now. But someday I agreed, though I couldn't picture it. How do you date as a widow? How do you explain to someone new that you're still in love with someone who's dead? That you're not over it and might never be? Work was difficult. My boss was understanding, giving me flexible hours and letting me work from home when Emma was having bad days. But it was hard to concentrate, hard to care about logo designs and marketing campaigns when my entire world had collapsed. You're doing a great job, my boss said during a review, under impossible circumstances. But Claire, take care of yourself. If you need more time, I need to work, I said. I need the routine and the money. Because despite the life insurance, despite Michael's careful planning, money was tight. A mortgage, daycare, medical insurance, grief counseling for Emma and me, therapy, groceries, bills. The life insurance was set aside for Emma's future. I'd promised Michael I'd protect it for her education, her wedding, her life. I was living on my salary alone, and it was hard. I thought about selling the house. It was too big for just Emma and me, too full of memories. But it was also the only home Emma had ever known. The house where her father had lived. Moving felt like erasing another piece of Michael. You don't have to decide now, my mother said. Give yourself time. Time. Everyone kept telling me to give myself time. But time didn't heal. It just created distance. Distance from the last time I'd held Michael. The last time I'd heard his voice. The last time we'd been a complete family. Emma's 3rd birthday was the hardest day. Michael should have been there. Should have helped plan her unicorn party. Should have carried her on his shoulders. Should have cut the cake and watched her blow out candles. Instead, it was just me. And my parents. And a few of Emma's little friends who didn't understand why the birthday girl's mommy kept crying. I'm sorry, I told Emma that night as I tucked her in. I'm sorry Daddy isn't here for your birthday. It's okay, Mommy, Emma said, with the acceptance of a child who didn't fully understand death. Daddy sent me a present from heaven, right? I'd bought a stuffed unicorn and labeled it, "From Daddy," because what else could I do? Let her think he'd forgotten? That was worse than the gentle fiction. Right, I said. From Daddy. Patricia thankfully stayed away. The restraining order held. I'd see her occasionally, once at a distance in a grocery store, once driving past on the highway. But she never approached. Never violated the order. Either she'd finally given up, or she'd decided the consequences weren't worth it. Either way, I was grateful. I couldn't handle another battle with Patricia, not while I was barely holding myself together. You're stronger than you think, my therapist said. You've survived losing your husband, battling your mother-in-law, raising a grieving toddler, maintaining your career. That takes incredible strength. I don't feel strong, I said. I feel like I'm drowning, like I'm just barely keeping my head above water. That's what survival looks like sometimes. Not thriving, not flourishing, just not drowning. And that's enough. 1 year after Michael's death, I visited his grave. Emma came with me, carrying flowers she'd picked from our garden. Hi, Daddy, Emma said to the headstone. I'm 3 now. I learned to ride my tricycle, and I can write my name, EMMA. Mommy helped me. I couldn't speak. Just stood there, hand on Michael's headstone, crying silently while Emma chatted to her father about preschool and her favorite TV shows and the puppy she wanted, which I'd been putting off because I could barely handle the responsibilities I already had. I miss you, Daddy, Emma said finally. But Mommy says you're watching me from heaven. Can you see me? Can you see my new tricycle? I wanted Michael to answer, wanted a sign that he was there, watching, proud. But there was just silence, just whine through the cemetery trees, and Emma's innocent voice talking to a headstone. We should go, I said finally, gently. Say goodbye to Daddy. Bye, Daddy, Emma said, kissing her hand and placing it on the stone. I love you. I love you too, I whispered, though I didn't know if I was saying it to Emma or Michael or both. That night, after Emma was asleep, I did something I'd been avoiding for a year. I opened Michael's laptop, His emails were still there. His documents, his photos, his digital life, frozen at the moment he died. I found a folder labeled "For Claire." Inside, a video file, dated 2 weeks before his death, the day after he'd updated his will. With shaking hands, I clicked play. Michael's face filled the screen. He was sitting in his office looking directly at the camera, and my heart broke all over again seeing him alive. Moving, speaking, "Hi, baby," he said. And his voice, oh God. His voice was like a knife through my chest. "If you're watching this, it means something happened to me. And I'm so sorry." He took a breath, steadying himself. "I'm making this video because of my mom. Because I know if I die, she's going to make your life hell. She's going to lie and manipulate and try to take everything. And I want you to know, none of it is true." Tears streamed down my face, watching him defend me from beyond the grave. "I love you, Claire. I have never wanted to divorce you. I have never regretted marrying you. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. You and Emma are my whole world. And if something happens to me, I want you to know, you're an amazing mother, an amazing wife, and I trust you completely with our daughter and our future." He wiped his own eyes, emotional. "About my mom, I know this sounds harsh, but you need to be careful. She's going to try to take control. Of the estate, of Emma, of everything. Don't let her. I've updated everything legally to protect you. But she'll fight it. She'll lie. She'll play victim. Don't believe her." He leaned closer to the camera. "The will is real. The beneficiary changes are real. Everything I've done is to protect you and Emma from her, because I love you both more than anything. And if I can't be there to protect you myself, at least I can do this." He smiled, sad and loving. "Take care of our girl. Tell her about me. Tell her I loved her so much. And Claire, don't feel guilty about moving on. When you're ready, if you meet someone who makes you happy, who loves Emma, who treats you the way you deserve, I want that for you. I don't want you to be alone forever." He paused, "But also know, you're not alone. I'm always with you, both of you, watching, loving, proud. You're going to be okay. I promise." The video ended. Michael's face froze on screen, smiling at me across the barrier of death. I sobbed, loud, ugly, cathartic sobbing. Because he'd known Patricia would attack me. He'd prepared for it. He'd protected us even knowing he might not be there, and he'd given me permission to be happy again. Someday, when I was ready, I wasn't ready. Not even close. But knowing Michael wanted me to eventually find happiness again, that helped. A little. I saved the video, backed it up in 3 places. Someday Emma would be old enough to watch it, to hear her father tell her how much he loved her, to see the man he was, not just the photographs and stories, but for now, it was mine. My proof that Michael had loved me, that everything Patricia had said was lies, that even in death my husband was protecting us. 2 years after Michael's death, Patricia made one final attempt. I thought it was over. The restraining order was in effect. She'd been quiet for months. I'd started to believe we were free of her. Then I got a letter from her attorney. Patricia was suing for wrongful death of her son. What does that even mean? I asked my attorney, Morrison. "She's claiming that somehow you're responsible for Michael's death," Morrison explained. "That your behavior caused him stress that led to the accident. It's completely baseless, but she can file it." How am I responsible? A truck ran a red light and hit him. She's claiming he was distressed about your marriage, that you'd been fighting, that he wasn't paying attention to the road because he was emotionally distraught. It's absurd, but she's filing it. Can she do this? She can file, but it won't go anywhere. There's no evidence. The accident report is clear. The truck driver ran a red light. Michael had no fault. But Claire, this is going to be publicized. She's going to drag you through the mud, trying to prove you're somehow responsible for her son's death. And that's exactly what Patricia did. She gave interviews claiming I'd been a difficult wife, that Michael had confided in her about marriage problems, that he'd been so upset the morning he died that he wasn't driving carefully. My son would still be alive if he hadn't been married to her, Patricia told a local news station. She made his life miserable, and now she's living off his life insurance while I, his mother, have nothing. It was all lies. Complete fabrication. But it didn't matter. The story spread. Widow sued by mother-in-law over son's death. Woman accused of causing husband's fatal distraction. The comments were brutal. If she was such a good wife, why is his mother saying these things? There's probably truth to it. Wives don't get sued for no reason. She looks guilty. I bet she was cheating or something, and he was upset. I wanted to defend myself, to release Michael's video, to show everyone proof that he'd loved me, that Patricia was lying. But Morrison advised against it. Let her build her case, he said. Let her make claims. Then we'll destroy her in court with facts. Don't give her ammunition by engaging publicly. The lawsuit proceeded. Patricia's attorney deposed me. Hours of questions about my marriage, our fights, Michael's state of mind, whether we'd been having problems. Did you and Michael argue? Every couple argues sometimes. What did you argue about? Normal things. Finances, schedules, parenting decisions. Did you argue about his mother? Yes. And did those arguments upset Michael? No more than any disagreement upsets anyone. But they did upset him. He was frustrated with his mother's behavior. Not with me, on and on, twisting everything I said, trying to build a narrative where I was a problematic wife who'd caused Michael emotional distress. Then, Patricia's attorney deposed my friends, my family, Michael's co-workers. Fishing for anyone who'd say Michael had seemed stressed or unhappy, they found no one. Every person testified that Michael had been happy in his marriage, that he'd loved me and Emma, that he'd talked about us constantly, that the only source of stress in his life was his mother. Patricia's case was falling apart, but she wouldn't withdraw it. She was committed to her narrative, facts be damned. The trial was scheduled for 3 months later. It won't go to trial, Morrison assured me. The judge will dismiss it before then. There's no case, but the damage was done. My name was mud in certain circles. Patricia's supporters believed her story, and even people who didn't believe it wondered, what if there was some truth? Then, a month before the scheduled trial, something happened that changed everything. Patricia gave an interview to a podcast that focused on wrongful death cases. She spent an hour detailing her claims, that I'd been a terrible wife, that Michael had wanted to leave me, that I'd caused the accident through my behavior. The podcast host asked, "Do you have evidence that your daughter-in-law caused your son distress?" "I have his words," Patricia said. "Michael told me multiple times that he was unhappy, that Claire was controlling, that he felt trapped. Do you have recordings of these conversations?" "No, but a mother knows. A mother can tell when her son is suffering." "What about the will?" "Your son updated his will shortly before his death to exclude you. Doesn't that suggest he trusted his wife?" "That will was forged," Patricia said, despite all evidence to the contrary. "Or she manipulated him into changing it. Michael would never have excluded his own mother unless she'd poisoned him against me." The podcast host pushed back. But multiple witnesses confirmed the will's authenticity, including the attorney who drafted it. "They're all in on it," Patricia said. "Everyone loved Claire because she put on this perfect wife act. But I saw through it. I knew what she really was. And what was that? A gold digger. She married my son for his money. And when she got it, through his death, she kicked out his mother and is living off his life insurance." The podcast was released. It went viral. Not because people believed Patricia, but because people recognized her pattern. The comments weren't sympathetic to Patricia. They were horrified by her. This woman is delusional. Her son explicitly excluded her from his will. She's a narcissist who can't accept that her son chose his wife over her. Accusing your daughter-in-law of causing your son's death is insane. Someone should investigate her. She's the one who seems unstable. The backlash was swift and brutal. Patricia's support evaporated. Even people who'd initially believed her started to question her story. Then someone found the documentation of Patricia's identity theft, the credit cards she'd opened in Michael's name. Someone found the court records of the restraining order. Someone found witnesses from Michael's funeral who'd been there when she lied about the divorce. Patricia's entire house of lies collapsed, and she, who'd been so confident in her victim narrative, found herself exposed as a liar and manipulator. Morrison used the podcast as evidence in court. "Your Honor, Mrs. Patricia Brennan has admitted on a public platform that she believes everyone, including you, including the witnesses to her son's will, including this court, is conspiring with my client. She's demonstrated delusional thinking and an inability to accept reality. This lawsuit should be dismissed with prejudice. The judge agreed. Mrs. Brennan, your son died in a tragic accident caused by another driver's negligence. You have no evidence, none, that your daughter-in-law contributed to his death in any way. This lawsuit is frivolous, malicious, and defamatory. It is dismissed with prejudice. Furthermore, you are ordered to pay Mrs. Claire Brennan's legal fees. And if you file any further frivolous suits against her, I will hold you in contempt and pursue sanctions. Patricia sat in the courtroom, silent and defeated. No more tears, no more performance, just the hollow realization that she'd lost completely. After the hearing, Morrison pulled me aside. She's done, Claire. Legally, financially, socially, she's done. She has no more moves to make. You're sure? I'm sure. She's burned every bridge. No attorney will take her cases. No court will entertain her claims. You're free. Free. After 2 years of legal battles, harassment, lies, I was finally free of Patricia Brennan. How I learned to stand up for myself and Emma. How I learned that boundaries aren't cruel, they're necessary. How I learned that protecting my daughter from toxic people, even family, was the most important job I had. Michael gave me the tools to protect us. The will, the documentation, the video, but I had to find the strength to use them, to fight back against someone who should have been an ally but chose to be an enemy. Do you regret how things went with Patricia? David asked me recently. No, I said without hesitation. I regret that she forced the conflict, that she couldn't just respect Michael's wishes and our boundaries. But I don't regret defending Emma and myself. Patricia made choices. Those choices had consequences. Do you think she'll ever reach out? Try to reconcile? No, I said. Because reconciliation requires acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Patricia would have to admit she lied, stole, harassed, manipulated. Narcissists don't do that. In her mind, she's still the victim. And I'm fine with that, as long as she stays away from us. Sometimes I wonder what Michael would think of how everything turned out. Would he be proud of how I handled his mother? Sad that Emma doesn't know her grandmother? Relieved that we're safe and happy? I think he'd be proud. I think he'd see Emma, smart, kind, confident, loved, and know that I kept my promise, that I protected her, that I used everything he gave me to build a life for her that's safe and stable and full of love. The life insurance he left wasn't just money. It was security. The will he wrote wasn't just a legal document. It was protection. The video he made wasn't just a message. It was permission to move forward. Michael knew he might not be there to protect us himself. So he built a fortress of legal and financial protection around us. And when Patricia attacked, those walls held. Last month, on what would have been Michael's 40th birthday, Emma and I did something new. Instead of just visiting his grave, we celebrated his life. We made his favorite cake, chocolate with raspberry filling. We watched videos of him. We told stories. We laughed at funny memories. I wish Daddy was here, Emma said, blowing out a candle on the cake. Me too, baby. Every single day, me too. But he's still with us, Emma said. Right, in our hearts? Right, I said. Always in our hearts. That night, after Emma was asleep, David found me looking at Michael's photo. You okay? He asked gently. Yeah, I said. Just remembering. He was a good man, David said. I can tell from everything you've shared. And Emma is proof of the love you two had. Thank you for understanding, I said. That he's part of our history. That I'll always love him. Of course, David said. You don't have to stop loving him to love again. Hearts are infinite that way. He's right. I love Michael. I always will. He's Emma's father, my first love, the man who protected us even after death. But I'm also building something new, something Michael wanted for me, a life that honors the past while embracing the future. Patricia is gone from our story now. She's a cautionary tale Emma will hear someday, about the grandmother who chose control over love, manipulation over relationship, lies over truth. About the woman who lost everything by trying to take everything, but mostly, Patricia is just gone, not relevant, not present, not a factor in our daily lives, and we're thriving without her. Emma is in 2nd grade now, excelling in school, taking ballet and piano lessons, surrounded by friends. She talks about being a veterinarian, or maybe a teacher. She's confident and kind and funny, everything Michael would have wanted her to be. I'm working full-time still, but also freelancing on the side, building toward eventually running my own design studio. Using the skills Michael always told me I should monetize. Creating the career he believed I could have. We're not just surviving anymore. We're living, fully, completely, joyfully living. And when I think about Patricia, alone in another state, having cut herself off from her only grandchild, having burned every bridge, I feel pity. Because she could have been part of this, could have been the doting grandmother Michael hoped she'd become, could have watched Emma grow up, been part of her life, been loved by her. But Patricia chose differently. Chose control over connection, chose money over relationship, chose lies over truth, and lost everything. Michael's will didn't just protect our finances, it protected our future. It gave us the freedom to build a life without Patricia's toxicity. It gave Emma the chance to grow up in peace, surrounded only by people who loved her unconditionally. That funeral, Patricia grabbing the microphone, lying about divorce, smirking at me, was supposed to be her moment of triumph. The moment she destroyed me publicly and claimed control of Michael's legacy. Instead, it was the moment everyone saw the truth. Saw her manipulation, saw her lies, saw exactly who Patricia Brennan was, and the will reading that made her faint. That was Michael's final act of love. Protection from beyond the grave, a legal fortress that stood firm against every attack Patricia could mount. 5 years later, I can finally say it. We won. Not because we wanted to fight, not because we tried to hurt Patricia, but because we protected what mattered. Emma, Michael's legacy, our family, the truth. Michael is gone. But his love remains, in Emma's college fund, in the home we still live in the legal protections that kept us safe, in the video messages that remind me he wanted my happiness. Patricia tried to take all of that, and failed. Sometimes the bad guys don't win. Sometimes the truth does come out. Sometimes the people who plan carefully and love deeply do protect what matters, even from the grave. Michael did that for us. And I'll spend the rest of my life making sure Emma knows it. Knows that her father loved her enough to protect her from someone who should have loved her but couldn't. Knows that real love is about protection, not control. Knows that she comes from a man who chose wisely, even in his last days, to make sure his family would be okay without him. We're okay, Michael. Emma is thriving. I'm healing. We're building a life you'd be proud of. And your mother? She's exactly where she put herself, alone, excluded from the beautiful life your daughter is living. Thank you for protecting us. Thank you for the will. Thank you for seeing the truth about your mother before it was too late. Thank you for loving us enough to make sure we'd be safe, even when you couldn't be here yourself. We miss you every day. But we're okay. We're actually, genuinely, finally okay. And that's the best revenge against Patricia there could ever be. Living well, loving fully, and thriving completely without her.